Hello and welcome. My name's George, and my channel's all about helping you get the most out of Logic Pro so that you can record and produce your best music in your home studio. Today, we're going to be looking at the new Session Player Drummer found in Logic Pro 11. I'm going to show you everything you need to know about the drummer and all the functions, and show you how you can customize those drum sounds to make them fit perfectly for your own project. So let's dive in. Okay, so I've got a project open up here, and I'm just going to go ahead and load in a drummer track. So for that, we'll go up to the little plus button up here to add a track. And here we have all the different session players available to us. And today we're going to be looking at the drummer track. So obviously select drummer to start with. And then down here, you have the option of drummer style. And if you click on this pull down list, you'll see all the different drum styles that are available to us, both in acoustic kits as well as electronic kits and also percussion instruments. Now you can try different styles at any time, so you're not stuck with this from the get-go. Now for this song, I'm going to give pop rock a try. So I'll go ahead and select that, and then I'll just go and hit create. And that created my drummer track over here, and I'm just going to go ahead and click and drag, and I'll move that to the chorus because that's where I'm going to be focused on for this tutorial. So I'm just going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit just by holding Control and Option and clicking with the mouse. And the first thing we can do is actually resize this region. As you can see, it's currently 8 bars long, but I have another 2 bars in my chorus. So I'm just going to click and drag from the bottom left corner, resize that, and you can see that it repopulates and adds some more drums. So right out of the gate, without doing anything other than adding the track, this is what it sounds like.
Wide awake, that's the way you like it when you're to the top. Don't have to be alone, working to the bone. Ain't got no more money, but damn, I'm feeling funny, and it's a better way. 3 days on the road.
So pretty good. But let's go over all the different options we have here so that we can tweak this exactly the way we want it. So the first thing I'll mention are there's some presets available. And if we go over here, see where it says preset. Currently we're on this half pipe preset. If I click this, you'll see there's a whole bunch of different ones. So maybe let's see what this Ocean Boulevard sounds like.
Wide awake, that's the way you like it when you're to the top. Don't have to be alone, working to the bone. Ain't got no more money, but damn, I'm feeling funny, and it's a better way.
So that totally changes the vibe of the song as well. So that's a quick and easy way to get started, is checking out some of these presets and see if anything fits for your own song. I'm just going to go back to the previous preset, as that was a little bit closer to what we wanted to start with. And then I'm going to tweak that from here. So let's take a look at our different options in here. So for starters, as I mentioned before, if you were kind of unsure of the drummer style you wanted, you can click here where it says pop rock. And this is where you have all the different styles that you can go back to again. And if you want to get to the electronic drummers, then you can do that as well. Now, I will mention there's this change patch button. So if you change the drummer style, it's going to change the pattern, but it's also going to change the drum kit that goes along with that style. So if you happen to like the kit sound that you have, but you just want to try a different style, then you want to make sure you turn that off so that it doesn't go messing with the sounds that you currently have loaded. I'm going to stick with pop rock, And then moving on over here, we have complexity and intensity. So complexity is going to be kind of how busy the drummer is. So if I dial this all the way back, you can see here there's a lot less notes in this pattern. If I press play, you'll hear that.
Wide awake, that's the way you like it when you're to the top. Don't have to
So way fewer kicks, way fewer snares. So let's go kind of maybe around kind of 80%. And then intensity, this relates to how hard the drummer's hitting. So the louder the drums are going to be. So I bring this down, you can see all these got a little bit smaller. If I bring them up, they're going to get bigger. But also the softer the drummer plays, the tone of the drum is going to change a little bit depending on how hard they're hitting the drum, right? So it's not just you're bringing the volume down, but also the character of the drum is going to change a little bit.
wide awake. That's
And since we're in the chorus here, I'm going to leave the intensity fairly high. Next over here, this is where we're going to choose our different patterns of the drums. So we have our kick and snare patterns here. And if we click in there, you'll see we have 8 different patterns to choose from. And you'll see these little dots. These correspond to the drum hits. So on the bottom, we have the kick, and on the top, we have the snare. So it gives you a little preview of where the main drum hits are going to be. So if we were to go to pattern number 8, for example, you'll hear how that changes the kick and snare pattern. So that's more of a kind of double time feel there. I think this pattern number 2 is working well for us. Pretty straight ahead. Now, the other thing we can do here is where you see follow rhythm of. So we have chords, and this relates to our chord track in the global tracks area. So if you open up your global tracks up here, and if you're not seeing the chords, you can right click and go chord. And this will be your chord track, which I currently don't have inputted because I don't need that at the moment. But if you're interested in learning more about the chord track, I have a whole separate video that you can check out that I'll link above. And the chord track really only comes into play if you're going to be using the bass or keyboard session players, as they'll follow those chords. But as it relates to the drummer will actually follow the placements of the chords. Let's say if the chords are pushed, so if they don't start directly on the bar lines, then the drummer will kind of play off that. So I'll go ahead and close my global tracks. And let's go back here. And so we have follow rhythm of chords. So in our case, we can turn this on or off. It's not going to change anything because we don't have our chord track. And then track itself. So this is where we can select another track that we have in our project already. So with drums, most often you might want it to follow the bass. So if I select my bass, you'll see everything kind of shifted a little bit. And let's solo my bass. And that'll just kind of line up the kick and snare hits to match our bass rhythm a little bit better. So that's pretty cool and something that I suggest you do. So then that just kind of locks in your drums with your bass. And then up top here, we have the pattern for our cymbals. So you'll notice we have our cymbals here, and then we also have hi-hat and toms. So you can choose to turn those on or off. So if they're yellow, they're on. If they're grayed out, they're off. So if we want this to be a hi-hat pattern instead, then we simply select the hi-hat. and then that would be the ride cymbal, and then we also have our toms. And same as the kick and snare, there's different patterns to choose for each of those. I'm going to stick with the ride for this one. Now, in sticking with patterns, you can also create your own pattern. So if you go over to manual, this is where you can input your own kick and snare pattern. So I'm liking the pattern we have, but I might just want to tweak it just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and input a manual pattern here. And if you want it to make it a longer pattern, so right now it's 1 bar long. So each of these blocks corresponds to a 16th note, and each 4/16th note is 1 beat, 1 quarter note. So right now we have 1 bar. If I want to add a second bar, I can do that and then click over here. And now I can create a pattern for bar 2. So now I have a manual pattern loaded in, and that's going to sound like this. Cool. Now let's go back to our main section over here. And actually, on second thought, I think I'm going to go to a hi-hat pattern. Yeah, I like that. Now, the controls we haven't looked at yet are fill amount and fill complexity. So fill amount is going to be how often the fills are happening. So right now, they're kind of happening every 4 bars. You can see there's one here, another here, and then just at the end of our chorus. So if you wanted less, you could pull that back, and then you see that got rid of those fills there and then just left them at the end of that 8-bar phrase. It'll go, I kind of liked the fill after the 4th bar, so I'm just going to bump that up a little bit. And then fill complexity. So this is once those fills occur, how complex is it going to be? So if we dial this all the way up, we're going to see a lot more notes happening. Right? So maybe a little over the top for us. So let's kind of dial that back to, right, let's say 40%. Cool. And then we have swing feel. So if you're dealing with a swing feel, then you can turn that up. But in our case, this song is straight, so that's not what we want. But for the sake of example, and you can hear that doesn't really jive with the bass. But that's what you would do if you have swing, or you can also switch that to 16th note swing. But let's just go ahead and turn that off. And once you're happy with these, you can actually lock them so that nothing gets changed by accident. Now let's move over to the details tab. So here first we have ghost notes. So these are kind of lightly hit notes, so not full kind of drum hits. So if you want more of those, you can dial that up, and you can see that that added a few of those. So those kind of extra snare hits, I'm going to kind of dial that back a little bit. Just stick with those kind of main hits. Then you can select what kind of snare hit you want. So right in the middle of the snare, or rim shot, or side stick. Or it can be played on the tom as well. I'm going to stick with center for this one. And then we can also add in some percussion. So if you want some tambourine, we can add that. There's also shaker and claps as well. Let's stick with that tambourine too. And then you can set how you want the hi-hats played. So if you want them all closed or half closed, half open, open, or wide open, you can set that there. Or you can set it to automatic, which will kind of alternate a little bit. Next, we can look at feel. So this is going to change kind of where the notes are being placed. So if you look either here or here, and let's say we move our feel all the way to pull. So you saw all the notes shift a little bit to the right, which is going to make everything a little bit late, right? So a little bit more laid back. And then push, on the other hand, everything is going to be just slightly early. So make it feel a little bit kind of rushed and a little bit more on the edge. I'm just going to kind of put that maybe a little bit on the push side, but kind of bang in the middle. And then dynamics. So this is going to control how wide of a range in dynamics, so in volume. So if you want a wide range between quiet hits and loud hits, then you can dial that up and you'll see kind of some more variation between the notes, right? So this one, for example, is going to be quieter than that one. And if we pull this all the way back so we have no dynamics, now you can see all the hits are pretty much even. So everything's going to sound very close to each other. So I'm going to maybe put that around 110. So just a little bit of a dynamics. Now Humanize. So this is going to control how kind of tight the performance is. So if you want everything kind of quantized hard and right on the beat, you can pull the Humanize all the way down and you see how things shifted kind of right on the beat. And if I humanize to 100%, then it makes the performance a little bit looser, a little bit more human. I'm going to place this around, let's go with 55%. So not super tight, not super loose either. And lastly, we have tempo. So right now we're set to standard. If I were to do halftime, then we would get half the amount of kicks and half the amount of snares. And double time would be twice as many as our standard. And I'll just stick with the standard. So that's all the controls in the drummer. Let's see what that sounds like for our whole track now.
Wide awake, that's the way you like it when you're to the top. Don't have to be alone, working to the bone. Ain't got no more money, but damn, I'm feeling funny, and it's a better way. 3 days.
Cool. So I'm really liking how that's sounding for our chorus. Now, if we're going to be looking at the rest of our song, all we have to do is create new regions to fill those spots. So all we have to do is right click and go to create session player region. And that'll create a new region, and whichever region is selected, if I make a change in here, that's what's going to be affected. So for example, if I pull the intensity down, it's going to affect this region, but this will stay unaffected. So for the pre-chorus, for example, I'll keep the complexity down and intensity down a little bit, and that'll lead into the chorus so that the chorus seems bigger and louder.
Only time that it feels that way, because I'm wide awake. That's the way you like it when you do.
And that way you can lead into the chorus a little bit. And I would just continue this process for the rest of my song and add new regions for each section. Another way you can add a region is if you hover over the region before it, you'll see this little plus button. And if I click on that, then that'll add it. and I can resize this to the length of my section. Now, before we wrap up this tutorial, I'll just quickly show you how you can go about tweaking the sounds of your drums. So by default, when you're using acoustic kits, Logic is going to load in the drum kit, which looks like this. And you can swap out any of the drums you want simply by clicking on the drum. So for example, the kick, and you'll see all the different kicks you have available to you. So you can select any of those, and same goes with the toms, cymbals, and snare. Now, if you're using an electronic drum kit, then that's going to load in Drum Machine Designer, which looks a little bit different, but same thing, you can swap out any of the drum sounds. Now, one last little tip, if you want to dive a little bit deeper into the drum sounds, is you can open up your library by going up here or pressing the letter Y on your keyboard. And you'll see right now we have the SoCal kit selected. But if I go down to the bottom here where it says multi-channel kits, which previously was called producer kits in Logic Pro 10, now if we go to the SoCal kit here with the little plus button, and that's going to load in a track stack for our drums. And if we click on this, now we have access to volume faders for every single one of these drums. I'm just going to open up our mixer by pressing X. And here you can see all our drums here. So if I decide that my snare is too loud, I can bring both my top and bottom snare down, for example. Or if I want to add different effects to them, I can do that all up here or add some sends as well. So this gives you full control over the sound of your drums. If you want to dive deeper into this, I also have a separate full tutorial on mixing what used to be called producer kits and now called the multi-channel drum kits. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I want to thank you for all the likes and subscribes as well. And if you want to improve your workflow in Logic Pro, don't forget to download my free Ultimate Logic Pro Starter Pack. This includes my Logic Pro hotkey cheat sheet, my audio recording checklist, my mixing guide, my gear guide, as well as my Logic Pro session templates. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.